What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. After their horrendous match at WrestleMania 20 in 2004, both Brock Lesnar and Goldberg had left the WWE. And we know what the landscape of both Raw and SmackDown were like with both superstars gone from the company. Earlier this year on the channel, I had done a video of what if Brock Lesnar didn't leave WWE in 2004 with still the possibility of Goldberg being gone. And only a couple of months ago, I did vice versa, where we talked about what if Goldberg didn't leave WWE in 2004, but Brock Lesnar was still gone. Now, although I didn't want to do another video again this year revolving either one of them, I just couldn't stop thinking about one of your guys' comments talking about the possibility of what if both of them actually stayed in WWE in 2004. So of course, that is going to be the topic of today's What If. We're talking about what if Brock Lesnar and Goldberg stayed with WWE in 2004. And so for this particular What If, I'm going to be going through every single WWE pay-per-view that had happened for the course of 1 year after WrestleMania 20 and how I think the landscape of the WWE overall would be had both Goldberg and Brock Lesnar stayed. And what makes this video actually different from the other videos was that with Brock Lesnar's, I only done the 5 big points. And with Goldberg, it's interesting because I think his career may have been impacted if Brock Lesnar also stayed. And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share this to all your friends, subscribe, and press the notification bell for when future episodes get released, and leave a comment down below about today's topic or suggesting a future topic for an episode of Pro Wrestling What If. And I will mention that just like the Goldberg video, I will also have Goldberg still be drafted to the SmackDown roster, which I think would have been a huge contribution of Goldberg at least re-signing for 1 more year to get him out of the quote-unquote hostile environment that was the Raw roster, especially with that real-life heat with Triple H. So I guess the first pay-per-view event for both of them would have been Judgment Day 2004. Starting off with Goldberg, I would have him simply in a squash match against Bill DeMott. And I would actually mark this as the debut match for Goldberg as a part of the SmackDown roster and basically have weeks of vignettes playing anticipating Goldberg's arrival on the SmackDown roster after being drafted. This actually pays a little bit of homage to WCW, considering that Goldberg's very first match in WCW was against Bill DeMott under the name Hugh Morris, and for Brock Lesnar, he would be challenging Eddie Guerrero for the WWE Championship, which we know in the real timeline, of course, this role was taken by JBL when Brock Lesnar was gone, but like I mentioned even in the Brock Lesnar video, had he not left, that I think that Brock Lesnar would have been pretty much doing the exact same thing as JBL was in 2004, even to the point where I think at this specific match at Judgment Day that it does end in a disqualification, leading to another match between the two for the title at the following pay-per-view. The next pay-per-view is the Great American Bash, which for Goldberg's sake, he would be challenging JBL in a match where they would determine the #1 contender for the WWE Championship. Now, although JBL isn't entirely in the main event scene, I think that they are still going to build up that JBL character. And of course, with a big star like Goldberg, it's a no-brainer that he should be in this kind of match. Goldberg would defeat JBL in pretty much minutes and become the #1 contender. Then for Brock Lesnar, he would face Eddie Guerrero for the WWE Championship, and I think we all know where this is going. Brock Lesnar would defeat Eddie Guerrero and become the new WWE Champion, just like JBL did in the real timeline. However, of course, there's not going to be a Texas Bull Rope match between the two. It's likely some sort of other stipulation, like let's say no holds barred or last man standing. SummerSlam, it would be Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. Now, something that I forgot to mention as terms of the WrestleMania 20 matches, I think in this timeline, Brock Lesnar would have actually beaten Goldberg. And it's even been mentioned by Kurt Angle on his podcast, The Kurt Angle Show, that the reason Brock Lesnar did lose was the fact that Vince McMahon was upset that Brock was also leaving the WWE after WrestleMania. So knowing that Brock Lesnar would be staying in this case, that I think Vince McMahon would 100% be putting Brock Lesnar over for that WrestleMania 20 match. So now this is basically a rematch between the two, but this time for the WWE Championship, since Goldberg did win the #1 contender match at the Great American Bash. Goldberg would actually win the match, however, this would be due to a disqualification thanks to interference from the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. And this would be a way for Goldberg to pick up a win on Brock Lesnar, but with Brock Lesnar still being the WWE champion. No Mercy, Goldberg would take on Kurt Angle in a one-on-one match. And I think in this case, Goldberg would be basically taking the spot that we seen with Big Show in the real timeline by having that long extended feud with Kurt Angle and his proteges Mark Jindrak and Luther Reigns. And I feel like WWE would capitalize on that potential dream match between Kurt Angle and Goldberg. And so just like we seen with the real timeline, Kurt Angle would lose this match. And as terms to Brock Lesnar, he'd be defending the WWE Championship against The Undertaker. And I would imagine that it would still be the last ride match like we seen with JBL in the real timeline. And it's funny enough, this would actually have marked the 3rd year in a row that Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker would have faced off against each other at No Mercy. Because at No Mercy in 2002 was their epic Hell in a Cell match for the WWE Championship, which saw Brock Lesnar win. And then the following year at 2003's No Mercy was the match between the two of them in the biker chain match for the WWE Championship, which had led to Brock Lesnar retaining thanks to interference from Vince McMahon. And it was heavily rumored that had Brock Lesnar stayed with WWE, that he was expected to feud with The Undertaker again at some point, and this time this would actually be the first time we would see Deadman Undertaker against Brock Lesnar. And just like the prior 2 years, Brock Lesnar would retain the WWE Championship, and I unfortunately would think that it would be the same reason as JBL retaining, and that is because of the help of the psychotic lunatic known as Heightenreich to set up that atrocious one-on-one match for the Survivor Series pay-per-view the following month. Survivor Series, I think that Goldberg would be a part of the Team Guerrero versus Team Angle Survivor Series match we had seen in the real timeline. This time it's Eddie Guerrero, Goldberg, John Cena, and Rob Van Dam against Team Angle, which would have Kurt Angle, Mark Jindrak, Luther Reigns, and Carlito Caribbean Cool. And I feel just like the real timeline, we would see Team Guerrero defeat Team Angle. Brock Lesnar, just like the real timeline, he would be defending the WWE Championship against Booker T. And this would have been a pretty fun match because I don't remember Booker T or Brock Lesnar ever having a one-on-one match with each other, ever. But of course, like the real timeline, unfortunately, Booker T does suffer the fate and loses this match, with Brock Lesnar retaining the championship. Armageddon, for Goldberg's sake at this pay-per-view, I had mentioned earlier that he basically takes the place of the Big Show for this feud against Kurt Angle, which does mean that Goldberg will be facing Mark Jindrak, Luther Reigns, and Kurt Angle in the 3-on-1 handicap match. Goldberg would defeat all 3 of them in the match. And just like the real timeline, taking the place of JBL, Brock Lesnar would defend the WWE Championship against Booker T, Eddie Guerrero, and The Undertaker in the Fatal 4-Way match. And unfortunately, once again, just like the real timeline, Undertaker would lose this match thanks to interference from the psychotic lunatic known as Heightenreich, and Brock Lesnar would retain the WWE Championship. Royal Rumble 2005, we would have the triple threat match for the WWE Championship, Goldberg against Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, and I think it would also make sense at this point considering that Goldberg throughout this timeline was screwed over by Kurt Angle from the initial WWE Championship match at the SummerSlam event, so now Goldberg would get his shot again against Brock Lesnar, but Kurt Angle gets himself inserted into this match. But once again, Brock Lesnar would retain the WWE Championship, and just like the real timeline, Kurt Angle is actually the one to take the fall, so that way we protect Goldberg, especially on the road to WrestleMania. And at this point, Goldberg has yet to be pinned or submitted to lose a match. No Way Out, it would be a one-on-one match match with Goldberg against The Big Show. Now, in the real timeline, The Big Show had been a babyface at this point, but I think throughout this whole timeline that Big Show never does that babyface turn and that he still remains a heel. Big Show likely would have had his knee surgery right after his WrestleMania 20 match against John Cena when he dropped the United States Championship, and at this point would be building himself up to try to get himself into the main event scene and to try and act as a posable threat to Goldberg, who, like I mentioned, has yet to be pinned or submitted while being a part of the SmackDown roster. And there could even be ties back to the WCW days when we did see at one point Goldberg hit Big Show with a jackhammer. But of course, just like the WCW days, we would actually see Goldberg defeat the Big Show in this match. And when it comes to Brock Lesnar, I actually could not think of anything of what Brock Lesnar could potentially do. Considering I have the Big Show going up against Goldberg, Kurt Angle is already going up against John Cena to determine the #1 contender for the WWE Championship, so maybe in this case it perhaps may be another match between Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. So for WrestleMania 21, I think that Goldberg would face The Undertaker in a one-on-one match. Now, I will say, whether you've seen the video or not, I did mention that if Goldberg had stayed with WWE, they would have had the match of Goldberg versus The Undertaker for WrestleMania 21. And the way I even booked this was for the fact of not having Goldberg or The Undertaker interact with each other throughout the entire year until we got to WrestleMania. So I think at this point, with pretty much running through all the competition on SmackDown, now he has one more person to go and challenge, and that is of course The Undertaker, who also has his undefeated streak at WrestleMania. And of course, because likely Goldberg isn't re-signing after this new one-year deal, that The Undertaker would defeat Goldberg at WrestleMania and extend his streak. And I can tell you first and foremost, this probably would be 10 times better of a match than what we've seen between the two in 2019 in Saudi Arabia. And for Brock Lesnar, he would be defending the WWE Championship against John Cena. Nearly 2 years prior to this event, we actually seen Brock Lesnar versus John Cena for the WWE Championship at the Backlash 2003 event, but the roles were reversed, where Brock Lesnar was a babyface and John Cena was a heel. So it would have been interesting at this particular time when you have heel Brock Lesnar against the uber popular John Cena at this point, right before he becomes the C Nation leader. And it also does make me think, because people did mention this in the comments during the Brock Lesnar video I had done, is at this particular point, because Brock Lesnar has stayed, would this have WWE decide to actually have John Cena win the championship, or could there be a possibility that Brock Lesnar actually retains the WWE Championship and that maybe John Cena's time isn't exactly now to become the WWE Champion?